Oh, chat, guys, chat. You know the player Rops. Chat, you guys know Rops from CS. He sent me messages today, and I thought it was actually interesting. Yeah, because I was like, it's probably one of those messages, whatever. I was like, whatever, and I actually read the message, and I thought it's a good topic. Hold on, well, you guys are not gonna give a but I go, yo, is this gonna load? Watch this.
This is what game movement looks like on Razer's new keyboard. It achieves
look at this shit, chat.
strafing inputs. No movement overlap, no delay between direction changes. This movement accuracy is 100% impossible
look at this CS movement.
on a normal keyboard. And in the past, this way of input handling has been determined as cheating. Razer, though, are calling it SnapTap. It's a free update that's available on their Huntsman V3 analog keyboards, and after testing this thing out, it is 100% something that we need to talk about. Normal gaming keyboards look like this.
Watch.
A 2mm actuation point. Beyond that, the key is active, and above that point, the key is reset. That's pretty much it. The main issue here is that there's a lot of delay between what you intend to happen when you press or release a switch and the point when that actually happens. But then, Wooding mostly fixed this. They came out with their adjustable actuation points, making the press delay basically as minimal as you want, along with a feature called Rapid Trigger, allowing the switch to instantly reset the moment it starts lifting up.
But wait
this feels
guys, you guys all said, so it's just Wooding? Settle down. You haven't seen the video yet. So this is Wooding. Settle down.
And bounds more intuitive to play on, and since the majority of keyboard input lag is actually the physical travel of the switch, it offers literally multiple frames of lower latency pressing and releasing switches. But there's actually one more thing. On the Wooding, it is still technically possible to overlap your movement keys. If you start pressing one direction before releasing
there's
the
still
other,
a good amount of
you're
overlap.
technically actuating both keys at the same time, and in most games, this will give you no input. The chance of this happening is way lower than a regular mechanical keyboard, but it is still there. And that is where this new feature from Razer comes in.
Watch this.
It only activates your last pressed input, now making it impossible to overlap your movement keys. If you hold down one key and then press the opposite direction without releasing the other, you'll just start moving in that new direction. There is no movement overlap at all, and there's also no delay between the left and right movement. You can be moving in one direction on one frame and then instantly get an input in the opposite direction, literally the next frame. No other keyboard can do this. Now in Counter-Strike, the most important movement technique to learn is called counter-strafing. It's when you release one movement key and then tap the opposite one to stop moving as soon as you possibly can. In this game, you only have full accuracy.
Chat, if the people that don't know, okay, it's kind of an art to be really good at doing this, and releasing the key and feeling the mechanism release, and then clicking the counter key and then shooting it. Right? Because you have to get the timing right, and you have to feel that
at zero mechanism velocity or very close to it. So the sooner you can stop moving, the sooner you can fire an accurate shot. And this technique takes a lot of practice. It looks easy if you've never tried it before, but consider the precise timing that you need to release and press that new switch every single time in the heat of a game, with no movement overlap and no delay between those inputs. It is legitimately something that you could still be improving after thousands of hours of playing this game. This keyboard, though, can do it perfectly every single time with no effort. All you need to do is be moving in one direction and tap the opposite direction. You get a perfect counter strafe every single time. And I don't mean perfect as in kind of perfect. I mean frame by frame. This is as perfect of a counter strafe as the game engine will allow. So here's a bit of a counter strafing simulation between the Razer Huntsman Mini V3 and the Wooding 60. These two solenoids will perform a strafe and a counter strafe, so we can see which keyboard will give us the better movement. And to kind of simulate human error, I've added a tiny bit of overlap. Basically, if you were to start pressing one key without lifting the other
and most players are going to have a little bit of overlap
way more common than you might think, especially under the pressure of a competitive game, even for a pro player. And yeah, we can see a difference. Razer's SnapTap gets us back to full weapon accuracy roughly 60 to 70 milliseconds faster. And maybe more importantly here, there are several frames where you'll be at full accuracy on the Razer, but almost full spread on the wounding. And then in Overwatch, where you don't have counter-strafing, but you do have
MS
instant
means that you're playing on lag.
It's a very similar result. Not something that's easily noticeable in real time, but keep in mind this is the exact same input happening on both keyboards, but with a different result. I've also only simulated a tiny bit of overlap of just 50 milliseconds. The worse that overlap is, the more dramatic this result will be.
Watch
but again,
the last move he does.
Is how easy this is to do every single time, and you get a perfect input. I can personally count the number of times that I've played CS. It's enough to know that my movement is pretty bad, but this keyboard turned me into a counter-strafing god within about 5 minutes of practice. It was so easy to do over and over again. Even under the pressure of a 1v1, this keyboard just did it for me. But then I noticed something that's maybe even more broken. If you hold down one direction and keep tapping the opposite direction, you can do absolutely perfect jiggle strafing. Again here, no input overlapping or delay, it's brutally easy to do, and if you stay within the right dead zone in Counter-Strike, you still technically have full accuracy. It makes micro-correcting with little strafe inputs absurdly easy. You can do perfect jiggle peeks around corners with like no effort at all, and you're a lot harder to hit compared to just standing still or crouching. It's kind of busted in Overwatch as well.
Look at Overwatch movement.
Insane strafe spam that I've personally ever seen. This kind of strafe with no error or delay is actually impossible on any other keyboard unless you're a robot. The usefulness of this in an actual competitive match though is definitely up for debate, but used in a more normal way where you're actually dodging and mirroring enemy input, it does definitely feel like a more responsive and clean input. Now this snap tap feature, this way of only prioritizing your last pressed input, is actually nothing new. It's been around for a while in both Team Fortress 2 and Counter-Strike with something called null cancelling movement. It's a script which basically does the same thing on pretty much any keyboard, and at least in CS, it wasn't allowed in competition. This new keyboard though, apparently is allowed at the highest level of ESL tournaments, which is going to be interesting for sure. For most people who are just going to be using this to rank up online though, I don't think that this is like bannable or even detectable because it's doing it at a...
The way I feel this is like this. I think before the keyboards were not mechanical, right? And then people introduced mechanical keyboards. I feel like this is as cheating as mechanical keyboards were to non-mechanical keyboards, right? So I feel like this is gonna become it'll become the standard at one point.
Hardware level. Maybe I'm
wrong. So you can fight the wave hard, and I agree that you probably should fight it, but then you're gonna have to level up.
Wrong there, but yeah, I think we're at an interesting point in time with gaming keyboards especially, where game developers and tournament referees need to look at this stuff and actually decide whether it is broken for their particular game. Especially the way that it can be used to AD spam so quickly and so accurately with no error. Yeah, I don't know.
Chat, listen, I don't think you guys, if you build a watch chat, you know that if you spam your keys, right? Spam your keys, a lot of strafes are not gonna register, right? So even though you're spamming really fast, you will get a lot of strafes. But this means that every single time you strafed, the character did your strafe. So if you spammed, it doesn't matter. Every singular movement was done in the game with no delay.
It's just not normal. For those that play Valorant though, there's actually nothing to worry about here because Razer's snap tap is actually not that useful. Counter strafing in Valorant is nowhere near as strong as in CS. You do get slightly shorter animations, but yeah, rapid trigger has a much greater effect here. At the very least, it is a nice feature that means that you will never be overlapping inputs, but that's pretty much it. Now, Wooding does have a kind of similar feature to this called Rappy Snappy. It's similar in the way that it won't let you overlap inputs, but instead it prioritizes the furthest pressed input, not the last pressed input like Razer. Wooding's version is pretty harmless, at least for FPS games. It's not
which doesn't really matter much because of activation points.
Too beneficial since most people are going to be pressing
because of activation points. It doesn't matter that much.
Otherwise, this thing is seriously OP, especially for CS. I can see why a few pro players don't want this thing to be included in competition. Game movement, after all, is a skill. Just like your aim, it takes thousands of hours to get to a really competitive level. With this keyboard, though, you're kind of cheat coding your way to a perfect input. I mean, the fact that I can pick up this keyboard and have like actually better strafing inputs than some pro players out there, that does make this feel kind of broken.
Yeah, I think they should be banned until
Love the iRacing xQcl.
Chat, I think it should be banned until everybody has it, or like most like keyboards have them, or whatever, or like most keyboards are updated. Because otherwise it's unfair. It's broken as fuck. It's lame. Because it'll feel like people are playing a different game than you are, and you have less fun playing games.
Yo, 49 months. Please welcome me to the jungle. It's my 49th
video, we'll watch it later.
attempt.